been patient with us. We started a bit behind time, but you have patiently waited. So thank you. Just before we go into sort of the discussions for the day and all of that bit of detail, we feel since it's a little bit of an intimate gathering, we would want to do a quick round of introductions. So I'd have my colleagues just go around very quickly with the microphones, just your name and your organization, while we also get that same feedback from people online. So we'll do this here, but we'll also want to know who is online because we're basically having this session as a hybrid session. So let me see who would help with the mics. Please, yeah, just take it round. So perhaps you can start this way and we just go that way.
All right, good morning, everyone. So it's name, organization, right? Okay. Do I need to stand up? Is it or okay? Just so you can see. All right, good morning, everyone. My name is Osaume Akenzwa, and I lead the programs team at Leap Africa. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Uremu Amajatoja. I'm the Grants and Technical Assistance Manager at SMENG.
So I guess we all have to stand up now. My name is Tosin Dabiri and SMENG as well, acting MD.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Sulu Binga Musa. I work with FAG Investment Management Limited.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. I'm Ufoma Monina, Funding and Partnerships Officer at the Lagos State Employment Trust Fund.
Thank you.
Yes. Good morning, everyone. My name is Kehinde Ayeni. I'm the Executive Director of Leap Africa. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Eva Abel, and I'm a partner at Oryx Impact, which is an impact fund of funds focusing on Africa.
Hi, everybody. The name is Afolabi Oladele, IIF.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Uloma Obike. I work with Ford Foundation. I'm the Special Assistant to the Regional Director.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Ahmed Omar from Leap Africa.
Welcome.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Atemare Glover, Impact Investors Foundation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Gwen Abiola Oloke from DI Africa Advisory Group.
Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Ifeoluwa Ogunfuwa from IIF, Impact Investors Foundation.
Thank you.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. My name is Emmanuel Jaule from Impact Investors Foundation.
Thank you.
Okay, good morning, everyone. My name is Temitope Oladele, Impact Investors Foundation.
Thank you. I think that's essentially, we just had an esteemed guest just join us. It's just your name and organization, ma'am. Thank you.
Thelma Ekio, National Advisory Board, Impact Investing.
Thank you. So thank you very much, everyone. That's largely all the persons we have for now in the room. We would want to quickly check in with those who are online. Our tech team, can you check, and if please see if we can have some of those online introduce themselves and their organizations as we move on. Thank you. Fatima, I see on the screen you want to quickly introduce yourself and your organization.
Yes, thank you, Joseph. My name is Fatima Omar. I am from UNDP, Nigeria. Nice to meet you all virtually.
Thank you for joining us. Who else is online? Would want to go next?
Yes, I can go. I don't know if you can see me. I'm Luisa Bernal, also from UNDP, but based in Geneva. Great to be here with you. Thanks.
Thank you, Luisa. Thank you for joining us. That's it. Online. Yakubu.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. My name is Yakubu Paiko. I work with GIZ Nigeria, German Development Corporation. I'm seated in Abuja. So nice to be here.
Thank you very much. So let's have the next person online that I don't want to murder the name. So please, Miali. You're on mute if you're speaking. Okay. Is that all we have online, so we can move on? Thank you very much. So once again, you're all warmly welcome to these events. I would want to acknowledge the presence of key representatives and partners who have played a pivotal role in shaping the discussions and outcomes we'll have later today. So we've had, as you've seen in the introductions, representatives from the United Nations Development Program and in collaboration with the European Union. We've also had LEAP Africa and members of the AVPA who would be joining us remotely. And then, of course, we have esteemed investors, limited partners who would be joining remotely, but also general partners who are in the room here today. We recognize you all and say thank you so much for coming. I'll move us into the activities of the day slowly. I don't know if I introduced myself. My name is Joseph Ubek. I work as a program manager with the Impact Investors Foundation. Moving us on into the agenda. So just to state a bit of house rules, we would have the convenience and restroom just outside on your left. Once you step out, we have tea and a bit of refreshments in the back if at some point you get thirsty. For the internet, on your tables, you'd have, for those, especially this now for people in person now, not our online participants. So on your tables, you also have internet connection, connectivity from the hotel, so you can also log in, because at some point over the conversations, we would need you to pull out your phones or your devices and please help us with a bit of information. So we would kindly ask that you be connected to the internet if you're not already, because at some point would need that support. You also have the agenda, the printed agenda on your tables. You can also scan the QR code for the agenda on your tables and it will pop up on your phone, so you can have the digital electronic version, as it were. And so thank you once again. At this point, I'll essentially call on my CEO to give us the opening and welcome remarks. Please put on. Please, let's put our hands together for her. Sorry. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Good morning, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. May I warmly welcome each and every one of you to this Investors Roundtable, and I'd like to establish the protocols for today. I'd like to recognize special guests in our midst. Thank you very much, Uwe, for moving to the front. I was going to call you. So we have in our midst here members of our organization and partners. I'd like to recognize the Chairman of the Impact Investors Foundation and the Vice Chair of the Nigerian National Advisory Board for Impact Investing, in the person of Engineer Oladele Afolabi. Please give him a warm round of applause. Also in our midst is someone special, Mrs. Uwa Osa-Obo, who is a member of the IIF Impact Investors Foundation. Thank you and welcome. And also a member of the Nigerian National Advisory Board, leading on gender, we have Mrs. Thelma Olu Sholanke. A warm welcome to you. We also have here partners, EU and the UNDP, Fatima Umar. Please let's recognize that she's joining us virtually, and also a colleague of ours. We also like to recognize partners, the LEAP Africa, please. Kende Ayeni, Lagos State Employment Trust Fund, And other partners who are not here, AVPA, we're expecting them to be here today. And also representative of SME-NG, not to forget, they are one of our long-standing partners. Welcome. So we established protocols for today and we'll just move on. And one of our very important partners, I beg your pardon, Ford Foundation. I don't want to be sued. My fund is, I'm looking for funds. So my name is Etema Regleva. I'm the CEO of the Impact Investors Foundation, and we are a non-profit organization established to celebrate the growth and excellence of impact investing. For those who do not know us, we are a family, so I won't really speak so much about who we are and what we do. But it is important that we are true to ourselves and the reason why we're established, which is to ensure that we have capital massively mobilized for impact investment, to ensure that we close the huge SDG financing gap, which is valued at about $10 million annually. We do not need just any sort of capital. We need impact investment, and beyond impact investment, catalytic capital to bring in third-party investment from the private sector. The IIF has been working in the last 2 years to deepen our work, and we established the Nigerian National Advisory Board for Impact Investing, a unique opportunity for members in the ecosystem to shape policies that will unlock opportunities within the space, bring down barriers, produce market intelligence reports, which is scarce, and data to demonstrate that impact is possible without sacrificing finance. The National Advisory Board is a unique opportunity under the Global Steering Group for Impact Investment, which currently is in 38 countries and 80 task forces. So by 2025, we should have over 100 national advisory boards and regional advisory boards all moving towards addressing the barriers, impact investment barriers in their market. By 2030, we want impact to be at the heart of every decision, whether investment, whether it's in purchase, whether it's in policy. We must get the kind of capital we want, and the private sector must not be left behind, as well as institutional investors. It is important that we are deliberate in the work we are doing to bring everyone on board. Today, I'd like to invite each and every one of you, if you're not part of the Nigerian National Advisory Board community, please look on your table. You will see more information of how you can join the National Advisory Board for Impact Investment. We'll be doing an induction this year for new members to join the community. It will be a unique opportunity for you to shape policies to unlock opportunities for impact investment and to remove barriers in your space. And this will be done at this year's annual convening for impact investment. So I'm also extending a special invitation to everyone here to please join us on the 31st of October to the 1st of November. And the theme is on catalytic capital for inclusive growth in Nigeria. It is so relevant, it's so important. We are building on the conversation we started in Ghana. For those of you who were here, we had some significant outcomes from that conversation where members signed up to this 2C Africa, which is the two catalytic capital Africa movements to close the SDG funding gap in Africa, which is valued about $330 million annually. So financing for MSME, I beg your pardon. As part of the summit this year, we'll be doing a very important activity, which is the deal room, to provide linkages for enterprises to investors. The Impact Fund Showcase, to also showcase local impact funds who are raising capital and bringing asset allocators, limited partners, to support our local venture funds. And finally, we have the Gender Impact Investment Summit. So important. Women are marginalized, either as fund managers, either as enterprises. We need to be intentional about supporting access to finance to first-time female fund managers, to female fund managers, and also to enterprises. This event will be happening 31st and 1st of November. The Gender Impact Summit will be happening on the 16th of November. Speaking about what we are doing today is to gather stakeholders in the room to prepare you for the annual convening, to gauge your interest so that we meet and supersede your expectation at this year's annual convening. Your feedback will be very critical and important for us. And we just don't want this conversation to end here. We'll also need your support to reach out to other investors who should be in the room, who should be deploying capital, who should be making connections with catalytic capital providers so that they can do more. We need your commitment today to support us to ensure that capital goes where we can make the biggest impact. With that, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you again for coming for today's Investors Roundtable, and let the conversation begin. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Please, let's put our hands together for her. She makes her way back to her seat. Thank you very much for those warm remarks. Thank you. I mean, just as a quick segue and building on the conversations she started earlier, I would want to quickly just run us through quickly sort of the idea or sort of the rationale behind the Investor Roundtable. Like my CEO had started saying, the whole idea behind the roundtable is to ensure that we're able to socialize the annual convening for impact investing with investors. Foundation is a growing organization, and so we're continuously getting feedback to improve. And so we'd also have the opportunity to get you to share your feedback with us in terms of ways we think, or you think, we can get better across a couple of components, across a number of areas. So we'll be having quick, short surveys, online polls as we have these conversations. Just to quickly run us through the agenda, over the next 3 to 4 hours, we would be going through this. So we are currently here. And basically, I'm trying to explain the rationale and why we pulled you all together, right? So thank you again for coming. But at this point, again, like I said, it's quite participatory and would want to get your feedback on a number of issues. And so as we move on, we would seek your opinion on a few other issues. But beyond that, we'd also want to introduce our Deal Source Africa platform. Essentially, it's a matchmaking platform, a tech-enabled matchmaking platform that allows us to make these connections between investors and enterprises. And so we'd want to talk a little bit around that and also essentially encourage us all to get onboarded on the Deal Source Africa platform. We'll also have our colleagues from the UNDP Growth Stage Impact Ventures take us through some of their work in terms of the pipeline they have developed over the last couple of months and share the opportunities that exist within that pipeline. We'll have a similar thing from our colleagues in Leap Africa, who would also show their work on the SIPA program and how a healthy pipeline of enterprises has been developed through that program. Again, would have my colleague talk about, impact fund, the impact fund showcase the opportunities that exist currently for fund managers, but then of course, where we see these opportunities could crystallize during the annual convening. And then again, we'll get your expectations as it relates to the deal room, the impact fund showcase, and then a bit of information we'll require to matchmake investors with enterprises during the annual convening. And then that should sort of wind us down towards the end, where we'd end with a bit of networking and some light refreshments. So once again, thank you very much and you're welcome. Without further ado, I would want to move this. Let me confirm who is this. Okay, so this is my colleague Emmanuel. I'd like to invite my colleague Emmanuel to essentially share. Please, you'd switch the slides to the next one, yeah. So we'll have my colleague Emmanuel come take us through a bit of slides, and then of course he'll seek your opinion on a couple of issues around catalytic capital, and then some work we're doing as it relates to our materiality assessment. So at this point, please, let's put our hands together for Emmanuel as he comes to the stage.
Yeah, thank you so much, Joseph. Good morning, everyone. So you can just help me roll the slide. Yeah, regarding our forthcoming annual convening, so there's a structure that is already on ground that we want to leverage on to see how we can create opportunity for both investors and the enterprises in Nigeria. And one of those viable structure is the Deal Source Africa platform, where we have investors and also enterprises taking advantage to see how they can leverage opportunities. And we are doing this in collaboration with our colleague in Ghana, the Impact Invest in Ghana. So prior to this, let me just move to the next slide. Right. So the DSOS Africa is a collection of opportunities that are cut across 3 critical areas. One of them is the platform itself, which is a digital platform. Then the other one is the possibility of having a deal room and equally providing access for Impact Fund Showcase, and which is one of the key events we want to have in this year annual convening. So for the DSOS Africa, we saw the need where investors, in terms of the different sectors they want to invest in, and also in terms of the pocket size of their investment, and also trying to leverage solutions and products that are available in Nigeria and also in Ghana, and extending beyond that to other African countries. So we've piloted this and we saw some successes that are coming out. And if you look at your table, you will just see an info sheet on this South Africa. So why are we doing this? Because we really want to create access for the investors and also the enterprises across sector. And for us, we know there are key sectors in our economy that will definitely drive growth. One of them is agriculture. You have health, education, energy, and a whole lot of sectors. Why we try to identify this opportunity, we also saw the need for information asymmetry. And if we provide a platform where both parties can come together, that will help them to foster a better relationship and take it further beyond that. So the DSOS Africa, I will just take them one after the other. The first one is the platform. So if you look at the DSOS platform, it was launched in 2002, right? And just the recent West African Deal Summit that we had in Ghana. We have success stories that are coming out already. There are some enterprises that will be sealing deals by, let's say, October. So to finalize all the processes is just for them to sign up, and that will be done, showing the effectiveness of the platform. So on the deal source, what is required is just for the enterprises to sign up and also the investors to sign up. And one of the things we try to do is also to ensure that we provide for data protection. So there are certain information for the investor that is not accessible to the enterprises, for example, like email addresses, so that they will not keep disturbing them. So whenever these social enterprises are there, the businesses are there, one of the key things is to run a due diligence on them to ensure that we are dealing with the right businesses that you can put a face to, that also have credibility and justify what they are doing. And in doing that, basically the investor, having identified some of the businesses that they are interested in, they have the opportunity of, there's a tab that provides for them to just save against each of the businesses that they want. And that will be collated at the back end, and a message, a correspondence will be sent to the investor and equally to the enterprises, introducing them to each other and following through, providing the necessary support. So the due diligence is a very critical part for us, in the sense that we want to see that they are a legal entity in terms of their registration requirements, and also in terms of the sectors that they are dealing with, if they have other certifications that are available to justify their businesses, and also the amount of fund that the businesses want to go in for, applying for, and equally the sector that they are dealing with. That will help the investors to be able to know prospects that they want to further discussion with. So on the website, there's a sign-up form there. The system is fixed in such a way that it is seamless in a way, so that it will not complicate registration requirement for both parties. So for the deal room, we have the first deal room where IIF partnered with our colleague in Ghana to host the deal room in the first West African Deal Summit, for which some of us in this room attended the event. And we saw the need to scale that down in our country, Nigeria. And one of the key things that came out strongly is the form of capital that appeals much more to the needs of the small enterprises, that's medium, small enterprises. And catalytic capital is one viable form of capital that appeals and addresses their needs. And just like our CEO mentioned, we have a gap of over $331 billion that we need to mobilize resources both within and outside the continent to close that gap. And when we scale it down to Nigeria, evidence is showing that by SMEDAN, that we need $158.1 billion as a financing gap for SMEs in Nigeria, for which $32.2 billion is an unmet need. So how can we generate this kind of fund? So the conventional financing structure that we have may not really address this kind of funding. So catalytic capital in itself is not competitive with the existing fund, but it's complementary. And we know that when we want to address key needs as far as our development challenges are concerned, we find vulnerable group, marginalized group, and also rural areas having these challenges that we want to address. So if we don't have businesses that penetrate and address this need, definitely we may not be developing at the scale that we want to develop. While we have investment and also enterprises that are providing solutions to address this need, they equally have demand in terms of financing to be able to help them to push forward and address these critical development challenges. And that shows that catalytic capital is very viable. So keenly, the deal room, the setting is curated. We'll be having both in-person and a virtual deal room. And prior to the day room, we'll be having an onboarding session. And the forthcoming day room, much more, we'll be having investors from our pool, from the pool of Leap Africa, and also from the pool of UNDP. So they are viable businesses in terms of scale. Some are early stage, some are, let's say, growth stage, and also some are the mature stage. So irrespective of whatever stages you are looking for as an investor, we have these portfolios that you may want to take a look at. So the Impact Fund Showcase is quite critical for us because we want to see how flow of capital will increase into our country, Nigeria, into our economy. And there's a need for us to foster this relationship between limited partners, asset owners, and also general partners. And already the IIF work is ongoing. And just to announce this to us in the room, that hopefully there's one that is coming already for which when it's mature, that information will be shared to us. But just for the purpose of this event, we're glad to make it known to us that nothing less than over 10 to 15 to 20 million euros will be coming into our economy as a result of the effort that is ongoing in relation to this aspect. And in the annual convening, we'll be having this much more, bringing limited partners and general partners to see how that can scale down much more. So for the Impact Fund Showcase, already there are some organizations here in terms of LP, limited partners that have indicated interest to be part of this very Investors Roundtable, but some are joining online, and some they indicated participating in person, but along the line something came up urgently for them, but they are not here. But hopefully in our annual convening, they will be on ground. And some of the investors, for our online viewers, I think we'll be having representative from the UNDP team and also part of their fund from the growth stage impact ventures to participate in that in relation to other limited partners that are showing interest in this. So we want to at this point thank us for listening, and also thank the investors in the room and those connecting online, and also the social enterprises that are waiting to engage us during our annual convening. So I will just quickly use this opportunity to appeal to us as we discuss around catalytic capital, seeing the possibility that we strengthen beyond the discussion that we've established in Ghana to deepen it practically, so that at the end of the day we should see actions that we've taken and within some certain time frame measure the impact that we're able to do. So in respect to that, there's a report that will be coming out, and that will be made official during the annual convening, which is a maiden report on catalytic capital in Nigeria. So we want to encourage every one of us in this room, those that are deploying one form of catalytic capital or the other, to please make your input available, because one of the key things that we get to know from investors is what are we prioritizing in terms of our economy in Nigeria when it comes to impact investing. Because some may be prioritizing gender lens financing, some may be climate change financing. So depending on the sector that they are looking at, so for we in Nigeria, what really is material to us? So, and I think this is not a question that IIF alone can answer, right? So it behoves on the multi-stakeholders within the ecosystem to make input to this. And in respect to that, we have an opportunity for us to contribute to that in the aspect of catalytic capital assessment. So there's a brief survey that we'll be doing, and also on materiality assessment in terms of what are those things, what should we be focusing on? what should we be telling investors that are coming to Nigeria to prioritize in terms of their investment priority? So that, we've had a couple of discussions with them, and this is an outcome of what will be coming to our country, Nigeria. So there's a process on ground already. So discussions are on with some investors, but they really want to know what are those things, because for some of them, they have what they prioritize as a nation. But for us, Nigeria, what do we prioritize? So in respect to that, we have a short survey here, just brief survey within 5 to 10 minutes. Max, I think it's within 5 minutes. We'll be answering this survey on catalytic capital. Then also on the materiality assessment. So which aspect of social impact should they be addressing, should they be committing funding to? Also, which aspect of environmental areas should they be deploying their capital into? So they really want to know that. And as we do this, it will help us greatly to have one voice, and also to see that investments that are coming into our country will be investment that we can really measure their impact at the end of the day. So at this point, we want to seek our understanding and also our participation as an ecosystem actor within the impact investing to just help feed this while we collate and present a unified position to investors that are interested in participating through their fund in the area of catalytic capital in Nigeria. So that brings me to the end of my presentation.
Thank you. I mean, in terms of the call to action, I think just put on the previous slide. I'll want to kindly request if we could just type these up in our phones. So we have 2 links here. I don't know how clear it is though, but let's try if we can type these up and see what pops out, and just get your feedback. Our participants online, please, you can also try the links you see on the screen. Please just type it up in your phone, and let's see if we can spend the next 5-10 minutes to just quickly fill out this. It's a short survey, really. It's quite short. Thank you. While that is ongoing, while we fill the forms, please, if you have any challenges in getting, in logging to that, please just let us know and we'll try assisting. So there are 2 separate surveys. So one is on catalytic, it's both actually, just both. Right, the barcode. Let me see that. Okay. So we would just be sharing a shorter link very soon, so it will be easy. I mean, if you've not logged in here, with reduced letters. Okay. Yeah, it says you need permission. You need to, or perhaps. Don't grant access. So while we try to fix a bit of um, the tech issues, the beautiful part is we have the emails, and I think we can, if we don't get this now, we can subsequently share. We can share with everyone subsequently, and then we can also just get your feedback. In the interest of time, I won't want to, while we fix the tech back end. But just moving us on while we do that, but I'm assuming this challenge is across board, so I want to assume yes. So I think we can move us on while we go on. Thank you, Emmanuel, once again for your presentation and the introduction to the Deal Source Africa platform. It's quite an exciting platform, and we'll encourage you all to join that platform. I'd want to call on our next presenter from the UNDP, Ms. Fatima Umar, and her colleague, Ms. Louisa Bernal, to provide a high-level overview of the UNDP Growth Stage Impact Ventures program. It's an exciting pipeline of businesses which the UNDP has been curating over the last couple of months, and would want to have them present and share the opportunities that exist within that pipeline. Fatima will be sharing her screen, so let's, oh yeah, fantastic. Thank you, over to you, Fatima. Thank you.
Thank you, Joseph. Please confirm that you can see me and hear me.
Yes, we can see and hear you.
All right, thank you.
Sorry, I mean, we can see your slides, but not your face.
The screen, yes.
Yes.
Okay, so we'll get right into it, and I'll try and keep this short. Basically, this presentation is to give you an overview of UNDP's work around mobilizing financing for sustainable development. Okay. So UNDP set up the Sustainable Finance Hub to support countries and their efforts of mobilizing public and private sector capital for the SDGs. And we have 5 service offers, one being public finance for the SDGs, which includes interventions around supporting domestic resource mobilization from the public sector. The second being unlocking private capital and aligning business operations for the SDGs. And then we have our SDG impact management and finance tracking. We have the integrated national financing framework, and finally the SDG Finance Academy. The focus of this presentation will be centered around unlocking private capital and aligning business operations for the SDGs. So broadly, we have approached this intervention in 4 ways. One is the origination of SDG investment project pipelines. Second is accessing private and public capital towards these opportunities. And then aligning business operations with the SDGs, which involves supporting enterprises and investors in integrating sustainability at the core of their business models. And then finally, supporting national and subnational governments in establishing and strengthening the policy and regulatory environment to attract private sector financing. We have spent the past couple of years building our work around mobilizing SDG financing. And our first entry point for this was to develop an SDG investor map. An SDG investor map is basically a market intelligence tool that provides investors with market insights on where opportunities are most aligned to sustainable development priorities. We'll get into that in the next slide. And then we have our pipeline building process, which is basically an intervention that feeds off of the data from the investor map and aims to identify specific businesses whose models are contributing to solving local development challenges. And then finally, investment brokering, where we are supporting SMEs to access capital, both from domestic and international financial providers. As I mentioned, the SDG Investor Map is a market intelligence tool, and it goes through this filtration process to identify opportunities where development needs at local levels intersect with policy priorities. So we begin this process broadly by identifying priority sectors through assessments of development needs at state level, and also comparing notes from national and subnational policy documents to identify specific sectors where there's a strong commitment from the government to address specific challenges. This filtration process then goes to identify critical subsectors where, again, there's a strong alignment. And then we move on to identify priority subregions. So if you think about it with a sectoral focus, if you've identified agriculture as a priority sector, we then go through the filtration process and validation from the public sector to identify critical subsectors, which could be, in the case of agriculture, could be agricultural storage infrastructure, for example. And then we move on to identifying priority subregions where these needs are the biggest. And then through a lot of collaboration and validation with the private sector, we then identify specific business models that address the challenges and priorities we've previously identified. And each business model is one that has proven to be scalable and to be commercially viable. The Investor Map process in Nigeria identified 7 sectors as a priority sector. So we have food and beverage, tech and communications, renewables and alternative energy, healthcare, consumer goods, infrastructure and services. And if you look through this page further, you would see the subsectoral focus as well as the specific investment opportunity areas, which are the business models I talked about. We'll put a link in the chat box where you can engage with the Investor Map broadly and see other information that it provides. So it provides everything from the policy and regulatory environment around each sector and opportunity to the impact dimensions and the market information in terms of what an average return profile looks like for a particular opportunity, what the investment time frame looks like, and other relevant information. So following the development of the SDG Investor Map, we decided to respond to one of the major asks that we've gotten from the investment community through our collaborations with IIF and other parties. And that is the recurring conversation that there seems to be a lack of or insufficient investable projects in Nigeria. The opportunities are not unknown. Everybody knows Nigeria is rife with investment opportunities. But then the conversation comes to, what are those specific opportunities? And so to respond to this, UNDP is building a pipeline of projects that are impact driven and are contributing to SDG priorities at local and state level. Now, we are building this pipeline in 2 ways. One, through the Growth Stage Impact Ventures program, where we identify early stage and growth stage enterprises working within all the priority sectors I mentioned. And then secondly is identifying projects that are more at an expansion stage and are seeking more commercial type of capital. For the GSIV process, it goes through a 3-step methodology broadly. First is a call for nominations where we invite third-party organizations, whether it's investors, accelerators, foundations, the government, the range of stakeholders. We invite to nominate enterprises they have interacted with in the past or have provided some kind of technical support or have even invested in. And then it goes through a rigorous evaluation process where we long list and shortlist enterprises based on their impact models and their financial performance, amongst other indicators. And then finally, through a selection panel that consists of investors, industry experts, and development partners, we screen these companies to identify finalists. In Nigeria, this process received a total nomination of about 131 enterprises, and we have been able to select 17 finalists for the GSIB program. In more detail, these are some of the criteria that we consider in the selection of the enterprises. Broadly, is the geographic criteria. So each enterprise has to be addressing problems primarily in Nigeria, with their workforce primarily in Nigeria. We also have a focus on women and youth-led enterprises and business models that support the empowerment of vulnerable groups. And then, of course, the thematic criteria is across the 7 priority sectors of the investor map. The business model criteria evaluates their financial record. So each company has to show a strong financial track record, a solid management team, a business model that is scalable regionally or continentally, and then business models that are unique and have additionality, opportunities where an enterprise has been able to demonstrate financial success by breaking even through organic growth or raising some form of capital. And then, of course, we have very strong impact considerations, considering enterprises that have impact management and measurement metrics in place and are contributing to more than one SDG in an interconnected way. And finally, inclusive business models that involve people at the bottom of the pyramid. Broadly, the selection panel considers these dimensions in their scoring, with a heavy focus on impact, which takes 20% of the score, and then the financial performance and the business model. And then, of course, we have other considerations like the management team, the market opportunity, etc. From the 17 finalists that we have, they represent an investment opportunity of $115 million, and most of them seeking capital of between $1 to $5 million. Most of them have revenues between $1 to $5 million or $250,000 to $500,000. This is the distribution of the companies. We have 53% of the finalists being women-owned or women-led enterprises, and most of them have about 53% of them have a staff strength of between 11 to 50 people. I'll pause here and hand over to my colleague Louisa to just give you a brief rundown on some of the ventures in the program. Over to you, Louisa.
Thank you very much, Fatima. Are you able to hear me?
I can hear you, yes.
Yes. Okay, great. So let's go straight to the companies, just to give you a glimpse and kind of open your appetite to wanted to learn more about the companies. So we have organized this information around the sectors of the investor map, and we'll make sure that in the coming days you will receive information with specific, more detailed companies' profiles, where you can then explore a little bit more of the details of the companies, both in terms of the commercial and financial performance and information of the company, as well as very much on the impact that they are having. So if we go straight to what the companies in the food and beverage sector, we have shortlisted, identified 4 finalists. And they have a very different business model. So if we look at the Price Valley, it's really a digital food cooperative that provides the infrastructure that allows both households and businesses to aggregate the demand. And in this way, they can have access to better prices, but also better quality, freshness of food, and then across Nigeria. Another company, Pachamama, is really tackling nutrition, and it's really also sourcing from local farmers with using local cereals in Nigeria like millet, fonio, and producing very healthy and nutritious food that they distribute through different channels. Can be at the retail level, but they also participate in food feeding programs, school feeding programs in Nigeria. Tomato Jaws, for example, is a agribusiness company. It's vertically integrated, so they work with farmers, helping them improve the quality through extension services, financing, better farming practices. So 90% of the tomatoes that they use come from smallholder farmers. And this vertically integrated model is a particularity of the company that also allowed them to make a very strong impact in terms of the livelihood of the farmers that work with them. And if we look at Kitobu, this is a very interesting company. It's in the food and beverage category, but it's really a technology company that works on climate smart farming and post-harvest infrastructure. They basically use technology, data science to provide very tailored and accurate advice to farmers so that they can improve their farming techniques and of course improve then their incomes, their productivity, and in doing that they are helping actually agriculture to adapt to climate change and other environmental imperatives. So some of their analysis, they argue they can reduce 30%. They have increased 30% on the average in the crop yield of the farmers that are working with them, as well as reducing 20% of the post-harvest losses. All this combined has led to 40% increase in the farmers' daily living incomes. So all of the companies actually work very closely with local farmers in sourcing and provide a number of services to them. So they have a very strong impact in the rural communities where they work. If we move to the healthcare sector, we have identified 3 finalists. Again, very strong data and technology-driven companies. So if we consider CRIP MD, they are a subscription-based telemedicine company. They also provide home visits of doctors and microinsurance services to people that have a very hard time in remote areas to have access to healthcare. And through machine learning and artificial intelligence, they actually help improve preventive care. And we know what focusing on preventive health has in terms of expenditures, and both for the state but also for individual households. So since 2020, when they were established, they have now revenue of 1.6 million, and they have reduced or saved expensive out-of-pocket expenditure for people using their products of around 2 million at this point. Drug Stock is a procurement platform, and basically they deploy technology again to bring efficiencies to the supply chain and the distribution of pharmaceutical products. So they work with pharmacies, they work with clinics, with hospitals, and using technology, analytics of the data that they are able to gather, they ensure a smooth procurement process that reduces costs, facilitates timeliness in terms of access to the medicines where they are needed and when they are needed, and also help to improve the quality of medication, because through their process, they help to fight counterfeit medicines in Nigeria. Now, HealthMom is a very interesting company, and to some of the points made by Emmanuel, very much focused on women's health, and by helping to eradicate infant and maternal mortality. So they basically work to facilitate access to clean and safe delivery conditions for pregnant women, and empower and train community workers so that they can take care of pregnant women and infants. They have this HealthMom vaccination tracker that alerts women, pregnant women and their mothers, to take kids to immunization. And some of their impact already show that they have a 50% success rate in terms of women presenting the children for immunization at the right time in 2021-22, and they have more than 100,000 women registered in their HealthMom vaccination tracker. The next slide, please. If we move to renewable energy, Again, we have 3 companies there. Basically, we know our experience on development is that by increasing access to electricity and power, has a very multiplier effects on development by helping from education, so kids using light to study later hours, to businesses that can establish because access to electricity allows a business processing and others. So some of the companies in this sector do that and do provide electricity both to households and businesses, creating themselves the multiplier effects through livelihood improvement, etc. So EJIs, they manufacture, sell, and offer third-party logistics services through solar-empowered cooling products. This includes, for example, solar-powered freezers, solar-powered tricycles, and cold rooms. So you can imagine agricultural farmers that have access to cold rooms so that they can keep the products safely in good conditions, and they can sell when the time or prices are better, but also ensuring in particular that there is no waste of food. And also they work at fish landing sites, so some of their clients are working in the fishery industry. So, for example, in terms of their impact, they have they do track CO2 averted as well as food saved from waste. And also they work on financial inclusion because some of their schemes allow moving from leasing to ownership by the facilities that the company themselves provide. The next company, Coolbox, actually they say they revolutionize off-grid refrigeration. So they have an innovative ice-based energy storage, which reduces the cost of ownership up to 40% compared to other alternatives in the market. So they basically make refrigeration affordable both to families and businesses. And in the same way than EJIs, they reduce then, food waste. They can also contribute to avoiding vaccine spoilage and others. Then Sosai, I would like to maybe make a specific reference to Sosai because they work in northern Nigeria where 70% of the population don't have access to electricity. So the company deploys reliable and efficient renewable energy solutions that help households and businesses and farmers to have access to clean energy and all the associated development benefit that it implies. So they have increased 40% the income of families through access to electricity and avoided 120,000 of CO2, for example. In terms of consumer goods, we also have a company, Olivete, that provides and distributes technologies that turns biodegradable and organic waste into clean energy. And they have their own technology in terms of clean cooking. And we know, for example, the important impact that clean cooking technologies provide for women's health and children's health, but also for women empowerment as they are able to use their time and create businesses using clean technology. Next slide, please. If we look at services, so we have here 3 companies, and I would like to focus in particular on Harvest. This is focus on financial inclusion of women, especially. So they provide an all-inclusive solution through capital redistribution and a peer-to-peer model. So they use some mobile applications and internet banking to connect women across Africa, so across different countries in Africa, but beyond Africa as well, to basically allow access to capital that those that don't have it, and allows those with sustainability and impact mind to be able to provide their capital for impact investment to support businesses in Nigeria and in Africa. So the company has reached already around 30,000 registered users, and this represents an investment of around $1 million in transactions. So we have Bankly as well. It's really the bank of the underbanked. They use a digital platform that allows group savings. We know those are common in a number of countries. And so they also utilize artificial intelligence to provide a safe space for users of their services to avoid fraud. So since 2022, they have served 6 million individuals in underserved community, and this represents transaction of more than $300 million. If I move to technology and communication, conscious of time, Money Africa is basically a company that drives financial literacy. So it's an education platform that helps adults to understand better financial transactions and how to deal with the different options that they have so that they can use the products that the financial services provide, but in a safe manner that will build the resilience both in the short and in the long term. Next slide, please. So this is the final sector is about infrastructure, and in particular, as the investor man had identified waste issues and waste management as a particular area of importance in Nigeria. So we have identified two companies, Red Suede and Planet 3R. So Red Suede basically collects waste, organic and plastics and others, and they transform them in valuable goods that can still continue their life through providing value to others in businesses and in households. They are a very strong model anchoring the community when they empower women, the youth, and overall local coastal communities in getting implicated in waste collection and their valorization of waste so that they can develop businesses themselves, have a higher income, and doing this by tackling pollution, plastic pollution, and avoiding that going to the sea. Planet 3R basically promotes this approach of reducing, reusing, and recycling. So they tackle waste with a particular focus on textiles and plastic. So they make other products out of the textile that they collect. And they have, for example, in terms of the impact, they are already measuring and tracking that, and they have avoided through recycling of 20 tons of textile and plastic that has been recycled per month. And they have transformed that basically into valuable and more eco-friendly products that avoid pollution in Nigeria. So this is a teaser of these companies. As you can see, they have a wide range of sectors, products, service models. They are contributing to income, livelihoods in Nigeria communities, sometimes in a very hard areas to reach. So in terms of the human development that they are having, a sustainable development, it's very significant. Some of them are already tracking with very concrete data, the impact that they are having. Some of them are not at that point as yet, but they have very strong potential. And part of the support the UNDP is providing through the program is training on impact measurement and management using UNDP SDG impact standards. So these companies will be even better after going through the training, and they are supported to be able to show the impact that they are having. So in terms of impact investors, they are a very interesting proposition, because as you source these companies for your portfolio, then you are building on those capacities to be able to show as well in a portfolio how you are contributing to sustainable development in Nigeria and beyond. Thank you so much for this opportunity. Over from our side.
Please, let's put our hands together for Louisa and Fatima from the UNDP for that insightful presentation. Thank you very much, Louisa. Thank you, Fatima, for those insights. As they have presented, earlier on we had said we'd be sharing some potentially exciting opportunities for investment. The whole idea behind these teasers, that, as we've seen from the UNDP, is for us to allow us whet your appetites, but also to enable us after now reach out to you to say, how do we ensure we curate these opportunities? How do we ensure we match make you as investors with some of the opportunities that have been highlighted? We have a few others from the Leap Africa pipeline. I'd want to call on, yes, please, sorry, before you come, Osarome, thank you. Yes, please, absolutely, great. Thank you very much, ma'am. So, Louisa and Fatima, please, before you go, we have some questions in the room. Would want to pass the microphones around. So please hang on and let's get your insights into some of the questions that would be shared. Over to you, Ma.
Thank you for an excellent presentation. I have two questions. The 17 companies you profiled, what is the range in terms of returns? So how, from the most meek or lame, you could say, to the more aggressive, what is the spectrum like? And then how do you distinguish, in services, I saw fintech, businesses, so how were you able to distinguish those companies you put under services and those you put under technology and communications? Thank you.
Yeah, if I may, thank you so much for those questions. On the issue, on the second question regarding technology and services, indeed, this is a bit of, it's not a real clear-cut line. So we are basically informed by the sectors and subsectors of the investor map. And we try to match the companies. So as I mentioned, actually, even some of the companies in food and beverage, like Itobu, is a very much tech-driven company. So that, in a way, technology is a cross-cutting issue, as you may have seen in the different business models that I introduced. So if you go to the investor map, we have a number of sectors, subsectors, and investment models. And there is a whole classification behind it. So we made some kind of judgment calls on how best to classify the company, looking in more details to their model and where we thought that they were more, would fit better. And also we wanted to highlight all these sectors in a way to give this perspective to investors that there are all these different areas in where there are things happening and interesting companies working across the board in Nigeria. So it's also a little bit of a choice to bring forward all the sectors and call attention to the investor map, because we have 17 companies across here, but we had, as Fatima mentioned, more than 100 nominators. So we also have that information. And there is, we want to bring that interest and people looking at the different sectors and investor map and consider where to invest in Nigeria. I think it goes very much aligned to the presentation of Emmanuel. What is material in Nigeria? Where could investor come and contribute to sustainable development? So that's a little bit of our contribution as well. The investor map, and then this choice of showing companies across the board in these sectors, just to bring the interest and look for investors to look beyond. On the returns, I don't have a kind of a summary that could give you that information. But certainly we do have a lot of data from the companies, and that is something that we will be presenting. You will get some of that in the investor profile that we are providing, that you will have access to. So we have, as my colleague Fatima mentioned, the companies have a very wide range in terms of revenue, from 50,000 or less than 50,000 to more than 5 million in 22. So you have a very broad range of companies. Also, we do have companies that are growing very fast. Some of the companies in the health sector, established at the height of the COVID crisis in 2020, and they have grown significantly and very fast through the telemedicine, for example, CRIMMD. So we have a variety of companies. Some of them may not have such a, as amazing growth, but in terms of financial, let's say, or customers, but they have a very strong impact. So this investment pipeline is a combination of both. But all the companies do have both potential for, they are all commercially sustainable, viable companies. So that was basic kind of baseline criteria, and they all have impact. So Across the group, some of them may be growing faster and will have a stronger capacity to grow, and others may have may bench more towards the impact. But they are all commercially viable, and they all have an impact and a strong potential for both going forward. And that has been inherited or embedded in the way they have been selected. I hope it helps your response, at least partially, to your question. And as you get the profiles and more information from them, and certainly I will invite you also to go and meet them in the convening in October, November, so that they can give you the details that I'm, much better than I can do myself. Thank you. Over.
Hello. Thank you for your response. I have a question that is similar to the response you were just giving now, but I'm not sure that I really heard what I was looking for. It's around the $100,000 that's part of the criteria for selection of the top companies to eventually give debt or equity to. Given that you are awarding multi-million-dollar equity or debt, the minimum you've indicated is $100,000. And looking at the profile of the organization, these are organizations or businesses that already attract millions in debt and equity. So I was wondering why the criteria for the financial was that low. I would have expected a minimum of $1 million to be the benchmark for selecting these companies. Thank you.
Yeah, so actually the 100,000 that we use is kind of a floor. What we were saying it's a combination of criteria. So what our criteria said is basically companies that have mobilized 100,000 or have reached a break-even point. And basically this is a bit of a compromise. Trying to be as inclusive as possible and trying to, through the program, to scan a little bit of the ecosystem of what type of companies are there that are working in the sectors and subsectors on the investor map, and then bring them through the filter. So indeed, once we receive the nomination, this plus 100 companies, then we noticed that there were a cluster of companies around that have mobilized around $50,000, for example, and they had very interesting business model. They were impactful companies or very strong potential, so we did not want to exclude them. And they got in through this double criteria of being also, they have reached a break-even point. So that's why they are also there, right? So we went through the processes. I do understand your question in terms of the investment perspective, and totally fair. But we also want to bring, we thought that we were losing interesting companies in terms of the impact side. So that's a little bit of the choices that we made and the compromises. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Luisa. Thank you for those questions, Ms. Wan, Ms. Sayeni. Thank you very much. Those, I think, are the questions we have for our colleagues for the UNDP. Once again, let's put our hands together for Luisa and Fatima. Thank you very much, Luisa, for your presentation. Thank you, Fatima, for the insightful presentation. Let's also welcome Osarume from Leap Africa as he comes to share with us insights from Leap Africa. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Joseph. Good morning once again, or afternoon, depending on those who are joining us online, depending on where you're joining from. I think that was quite an interesting analysis and breakdown, and allow me to blow our horn a bit at Leap Africa. 3 of those companies have actually come through the program I'm about to talk about, which is the Social Innovators Program at Leap Africa. And we've run it for about 10 years now. It's in its 10th year, and the idea behind it was that you had a lot of very promising enterprises in Nigeria at the time, and they weren't getting the visibility and the sort of support and exposure that they truly deserved. And so we stepped in and thought, what could we do about it in our problem-solving typical approach. And we decided to come up with this program to, again, bridge the gap, primarily bridge that gap, the skills gap And then also just that visibility so that a lot of the enterprises and the promise and potential that a lot of them had, a lot more people will be able to see and begin to support or invest in. So when it's 10th year this year, interestingly, and it's such an honor to be presenting and speaking to it in a room full of investors this morning, I believe. We're still in the morning, yes. So I want to thank Temore and IIF, and Fatima, it's good to see you. Thank you, Luisa, for that as well. I'll just go through. I know that a lot of times when people hear Leap Africa in Nigeria or other parts of the continent, they're thinking, education and a lot of the work that we do with schools or students. But there's another side to us which is becoming a bit more prominent now than ever, and that's the entrepreneurship support dimension of what we do at Leap Africa. And so the Social Innovators Program, okay, I forgot, I actually have the, do I? Okay, all right. So is it me controlling it? Okay, all right then. Thank you. So this is actually just a cross-section of some of the, anybody knows what LEAP stands for? It's actually an acronym. Anyone in the room? LEAP, it's an acronym. Sometimes we see it used as a word. Anyone knows? Any thoughts? Leadership, yes. You started? Anyone in the room? Okay. It's actually leadership effectiveness, accountability, and professionalism. So it's an acronym that represents that. And through every interaction and engagement we have with young people, we're constantly trying to instill these values, because we know that in this climate we don't really live by values. But that's another conversation for another day. But that's what Leap Africa means. And this program essentially, like I said, was to really bridge the gap. What's the struggle? Over the years, we found again largely that young people were going and setting up enterprises largely driven by passion. So very passionate people, very selfless, very altruistic, but didn't just have that capacity. They didn't have the competence to be able to build businesses or enterprises that were going to outlive them, okay? And we know that a huge chunk of businesses in Nigeria and Africa rarely transcend generations. So we came up with this program, 2013, build capacity, and obviously, like we said, we're an enterprise support organization. Connect them to networks and partnerships that are not just local, but also global, so that whilst they are seeing the opportunities that exist in scaling, they're able to leverage those connections and relationships. And then finally, showcasing. For us, showcasing is so important, because I think what we've seen here today, even from the presentation by UNDPs, that there's a lot of great work being done by Nigerians. And I think at this point, they do deserve a round of applause. I think we should really appreciate what, amidst very, very complex and tough conditions in this climate, young people are still innovating. Young people are being able to create solutions and innovations that are tackling serious problems in their community. So I think there's a lot to be encouraged and inspired by there. And then when we think about showcasing, we're also saying that, look, whilst there's that narrative that young people or entrepreneurs, I think I was speaking to someone the other day and they said, where do you work? And I said, Leap Africa, non-profit. And they said, you guys at Londa, So there's a reputation, there's a notorious reputation for social enterprises, non-profits in the country, on the continent. But these are young people who are beginning to break that mold that a lot of people have in terms of just the mindsets. And so for us, the critical areas are, how do we get them to be empowered? We have workshops, and I'll just speak to that shortly. How do we also equip them? How do we support? Mentorship is such a key part of the program, because we believe that there are professionals who can add value to these young people through their experiences, either in any of the sectors, priority sectors that have been mentioned even by Luisa in the previous presentation. So we do that, and then this is really just what the program looks like in a nutshell. So mentorship I had mentioned is so key, very prominent. We do site visits, again, because we have to see what work they are doing. You know, when people say, oh, you know, social entrepreneurs are not doing as much, we have to go in there sometimes and really just capture the work that they're doing. I remember that in 2020, we had the first Pan-African cohort. Up until then, we largely focused on Nigeria because I'm sure you understand that the need was really huge in Nigeria. And so for 7 years of the 10 years, we focused here. We're supporting, and that's how we came across people like Adireni, who runs Help Mom. We came across Doyin, who's the founder of ResWaye that you saw in the previous presentations, and then Planet 3R. These are people who've come through this program and been able to go on, you know, and just scale their enterprises. So we are proud of what we're doing. We are also mindful that there's still a lot to do. And I think that's why, you know, the partnership with IIF and NAB is so critical for us within the ecosystem. So there's also the investment readiness training. This was a partnership that came up actually 3 years ago as well, because we also looked at our curriculum to say we relied largely on our partners within the ecosystem to come and deliver the training, the workshops that we were having. And so we met Impact Amplify. I think even Etemore was also instrumental to that connection. And we began to look at how we could co-create and co-design a curriculum that serves Nigerian entrepreneurs as well as other African entrepreneurs who are very big on impact within their sectors. Okay, so I mean, these are just some of the areas that we focus on. What are the key pain points for a lot of enterprises? And it was interesting when Louisa was responding to that question by Kenny. You know that, you know, why did you lower the benchmark to 100K? And I think you find that a lot of times when we set metrics or parameters for eligibility or admission into programs, when you start getting the applications and the entries, you now find, and it depends on how flexible and adaptable you are, you find that the reality is quite a contrast from your expectation. So it was so good to see that we were not alone in this space, because many times we say, these are the sort of people we're looking for in terms of admission into the program. But when we get the applications, we have to make room for adjustment to say, based on the reality and the quality of applications we get, we may need to lower the bar a bit. But in lowering the bar, we have to also recognize the need to be able to intensify the efforts across the ecosystem to build the capacity of these businesses. And like Louisa rightly said, I totally agree with you. There's so many promising. You see the business model, very promising, huge potential, but then they haven't been able to just generate. They haven't been able to raise as much money as you would expect. But do we then, you know, turn them back because they haven't? And I think it's a great way to really get these people integrated into that support system. So just thinking about it, pitching, I think, is so huge. We're working with the International Youth Foundation recently, and I was talking to Temora about it, even on this program, because they had, you know, one of the key partners that we had. And one of the things we said was, what are the pain points, but why are we seeing that people who are social entrepreneurs are largely reliant on funding and granting and are not thinking business, they're not thinking traditional entrepreneurship? So that birthed the current program that we have. And we're picking a very small group of people from the alumni pool to say, how do we begin to identify the critical needs that they have? Okay, and then provide that capacity development that is tailored and specific to each person's need. I think as we go along, what we're going to be finding is that the support that is required, even across sectors, is going to become a bit more intimate and specific, rather than giving a broad program. Or maybe we would have them in layers where there's a broader intervention, but then there's more specific and more tailored to the pain points and the gaps that exist with some enterprises. So we have the enterprise workshop, and then we go into mentorship. And again, you know, when we had the mentorship call, a number of people also, you know, who said, well, we wanted to mentor the entrepreneurs, and we were thinking, look, there's a standard that we want to set, right? Because we know what we want to achieve with these people. We're looking at a continent where young entrepreneurs who have a social impact focus are able to generate the sort of financing that they require to scale at the level that is expected, okay? So mentorship is so critical for us, and when we go through this, we have a call for mentors. And again, I think this is open to those of us in the room. This is where we also would like to really work with you, because we think that there's a lot of value that mentors do add. I'll tell you that for free. I mean, 2, 3, 5, many of the guys who have come through this program, in fact, we had an impact call with them yesterday, an evaluation call, and one of them had said, look, my board member came from being my mentor on the program. So he was my mentor, and then through the conversations we had, he's been able to come on my board. So he's serving as a board member. Setting up boards is something that's so critical again. You know, corporate governance, a lot of them, you know, just find that let's go on, let's try to make the money. But corporate governance is such a big thing that we focus on during the program. So moving on, you know, because I know that I don't have the luxury of time. Coaching and networking is also a big thing. And when we talk about networking, we have, and I was saying to Temore, you know, it's so interesting that we have the annual summit coming up in November. We have the awards for the innovators on our program in October. So on the heels of that, we'll be coming to the investment summit in November. But one of the things that we've done over the years is also to make sure that there's that cross-sectoral partnership. So a lot of them who are working across priority sectors, whether it's healthcare, it's education, food and beverage, or services, are able to come together and see how they could do more together. And they can exchange also experiences, you know, knowledge and capacity, so that the ecosystem of investees becomes even much stronger than it is. And then going on to the visits, you know, one of the interesting things about this was how we innovated last year. Because we now went Pan-African in 2020, it didn't make financial sense. We didn't even have a budget to be able to travel to Uganda or Rwanda, where we started getting some of these entrepreneurs from. So what did we do? We thought, look, let's get on Zoom. You take us around your premises. Let's see the sort of facilities you have. Let's meet your staff. Let's talk to them. Let's hear what's going on ground. And it was quite interesting that, you know, they were really excited about that idea. And we were able to get some information from them. So as much as you have gotten the presentation by our friends at UNDP, we're also working on something that's even comprehensive. So you wouldn't see all of that granular detail on this one. But we are working on a report that will be launched at the end of the year in terms of even just working with entrepreneurs in this sector over the last 10 years. We'll be happy to also share that with you. And I mean, webinars, this is also just part of it. So the investment readiness, this is what it looks like. It's a 9-week program. We're leveraging digital as well, because we find that not everybody can get into a central location, into a room like this, and have those sessions. So we get them from other countries, and then we get onto a digital platform. We're able to host that course there, and then it's 9 weeks. So it's paced. And the important thing is that whilst we pace it, we're not just having people go. I mean, how many people in the room have finished an online course in the last 1 month? You start it, and sometimes there's also that drag of just even finishing up. But what we do is every single week, there are coaching calls where they sit together with experts, and then they're able to go through the module, ask questions, interact. So there's that engagement, because we know how, you know, arduous learning online can be for a lot of these people. So this is what selection process looks like. It's not as granular as Louisa's presentation or Fatima's, but I would say that there are a lot of similarities there. There's scalability, there's sustainability. And for us, we always ask them, why are you applying for this program? What is the why? Simon Seneca always talks about the why. And so we're asking, what's your motivation? Why did you even start this enterprise in the first place? And so we look at the reason or the rationale behind their setting up these enterprises, alongside, you know, what's your sustainability plan? Because for us, sustainability is so key. And how you look into scale. Okay, so those are key parts of it. But we have a call for application. We go through the rounds of screening along the lines of those different parameters, and then we get to an interview stage, because we then want to meet one-to-one with them. So we have the Zoom calls, we ask questions, we have them do presentations, and then we get to sit down together with our partners to say, you know, who exactly is meeting your need and your investment need, because we do have sponsors and partners who say, look, we're going to give this amount in seed grant, and we're looking to see the ROI on that. And then we then induct them, I beg your pardon, not induce, induct. We induct them into the program. And then that's where they go through all the things I shared in the previous slide. So again, at the bottom, you'll see that these are some of the sectors, very much of an overlap with what Fatima and Louisa shared. We're seeing a lot more of renewable energy now. There's a lot of innovation going on in there. A lot more of the fellows who come on the program are working there. Agriculture is also big, very, very huge now. And then healthcare. You saw Adereni with Help Mom, and some of the other entrepreneurs there. So I think one of the big things for us at Leap Africa is also encouraging all of these entrepreneurs to begin to find ways to streamline technology or adopt technology into whatever innovation that they're delivering to their communities. And then this now takes me to just giving you a broader view. In the last 9 years, we've been able to reach 276. And you know, I'm always, when it comes to numbers, I'm always very careful, because sometimes we could go quantity over quality. But with 276 in 9 years, I think that's pretty decent because of what we're able to achieve. And of these 276, 200 of them are actually Nigerians. Bear in mind, I had mentioned earlier that we then went Pan-African about 3 years ago. So 200 of these guys are Nigerians doing, you know, spread across the country, doing incredible work. And these are just numbers to say that in terms of the indirect beneficiaries that they have been able to reach, we're looking 4 million plus. And you could see all the numbers there. I won't bore you with numbers today. But I think another thing that's so critical, and this is why social entrepreneurship, I think for us is also very, very important, is the number of people that it takes out of the job unemployment space. It's a huge vehicle to reduce unemployment in Nigeria, especially now that we're seeing the trend of a rising rate of unemployment in Nigeria. So if you didn't have a reason or weren't convinced about investing in this sort of entrepreneurs, this is one reason to do so. So that's the ResYA lady who Louisa talked about. And I think she's given some numbers as well. That's Adereni, who's also the founder of Help Mom that was mentioned. And then these are just a few others. Michael Sumbola, you may have heard about him, the Lagos Food Bank Initiative. He's into food and beverage. Uche Udekwe, he's also into healthcare. And these guys are doing some incredible work. Dr. Adora, she's also doing a fantastic job with healthcare. And these people, we have easy access to them, and we're able to reach them. So if you want to connect with any of them, please, by all means, we're happy to always do that or make that connection. Now, this is how I will close. Back to what I was saying about the event coming up just before the summit by IIF. That's where we showcase. And for the past few years, we've been saying, look, telling the world that, look, Africa's got something going on. Young entrepreneurs are making a difference in Africa. And so we have that coming up on October 26th and 27th. And why do we showcase? Because, again, it's a way to encourage these guys. It's a way to show them that, look, what you're doing matters, what you're doing counts, and show other investors who are interested to say, look, there are opportunities here. Let's put our money into it. Let's bring catalytic capital into this innovation here. So we have some of these awards that we usually would recognize at the event. We have the outstanding fellows, who are those that have, again, been able to take all the learnings, and in that 8 to 10 month period, been able to scale, been able to do much more, strike new partnerships, reach more people, because now they understand what they need to do to be able to scale their businesses. The Pamela Hartigan Prize and then the Shea Bickerstead Prize. Recently, we had Innocent Chukwuma also introduced to honor the late Innocent Chukwuma. Some of us in the room may know him. And he was a big proponent of social entrepreneurship, as we know, in Nigeria and on the continent. And that's, again, goes to somebody who's doing exceptional work in the southeastern part of Nigeria. So it's specific to the southeastern part of Nigeria. So for the event, this is usually the sort of speakers that we have as keynotes. And this is what some people are saying, the program and what they've done. That's another lady who's into recycling as well. Rita, she's also doing a lot of great work in Abuja there. She's a fellow from the cohort 2018 to 2019. And then, so this is just essentially what people are saying. But I want to close by saying that one of the key things that this program has helped us realize is there's so much potential. I'm thinking 10 years ago, I don't think we could have reeled out, or even 5, the sort of numbers that Fatima and Luisa reeled out in the last few minutes. It's only unimaginable what can happen in the next 10 to 15 years if we put the money where it needs to go into, if we start getting more involved and engaged in this. I have met incredible people, incredible young people, ladies and gentlemen, who are doing things that are they just continue to blow my mind. And I keep asking them a question: why did you go into healthcare? Adereni keeps baffling me, because I always ask him, why did you do this? Why did you choose to do this? You didn't go off to get a job from an oil company or from a big bank somewhere. You decided to go back into the community and create something that was going to generate revenue in the long run while addressing a problem, a huge gap in your community. And that's something that I think we'll continue to learn from these incredible innovators and entrepreneurs. And I think that it's high time for us to stop, misplacing our priorities. Let's put our money where it's going to work, where it's going to count, right? And so this is an invitation to everyone in the room to support, because it's a big ecosystem. And I keep telling Etemori, this program that we're doing in October, just before the summit, I said next year we're going to have to see how we all will come together in the space, have the investors, have the ESOs, have the DFIs, say, look, you know what, we're going to do something that's so immersive for social entrepreneurs in Nigeria or on the continent, and let's really make sure that the impact that we're delivering is memorable, because, at the end of the day, posterity would would count, and depending on what we do and where we put our money, I think we'll be able to really retire very well, very nicely, after all the work that we've been able to do. So thank you very much. I'm happy to take any questions. That event is in Abuja, interestingly. So I was saying to Temori, it's good that when we finish in Abuja, we fly to Lagos and do the summit, So Temori and team would also be with us in Abuja, 26th and 27th of October. We'll be in Abuja for the annual Innovators Awards, and we're inviting you. We're happy to share more details with you after today. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Osarume. Please, let's just hang on in case there are a few questions before you leave. But thank you very much for.
First of all, why is the event in Abuja? Then the Lagos Food Bank, I'd like to know a bit more about what the gentleman does. And then thirdly, how do you fund this fellowship? What's your sustainability model?
Thank you. All right. So the first, let me take the why Abuja. Okay. So we've run it out of the 10 years, 9 years. I beg your pardon, because it's 10th year this year. Out of 9 years, we've run it in Lagos for 6 years. Kenny, 6 of those 9. One time we went to the southeast. Another time was Abuja, and we haven't been in Abuja in a while. And because for us, we're looking to also engage the international development community. And we have an office in Abuja. We've had an office in Abuja now for about 2-3 years. And so we wanted to also emphasize that presence and have something for the international development community in Abuja. And I think, again, when we talk about the seat of power and the capital and just even policy influencers and policy shapers, it's strategic for us as well. So I wasn't very, I'm a Lagos person as well. And I think Lagos also has an ecosystem of investors, of players and actors in the ecosystem. But this time we're looking to just do Abuja so that we could broaden that reach and also just register the work that this program is doing and the work that innovators and entrepreneurs are doing as well. So that's why Abuja. So for Michael Sumbola, so he works with, he's done quite a lot of work with the Lagos state government. And so what he does is he relies heavily on volunteers. I think he's one of our alumni who I'm so proud. I don't know, every time I have a conversation with him, he's been able to drive down his people costs. So he relies heavily on a volunteer arrangement. But it's food. He goes into communities, low-income communities, and he provides food for them, free. Yeah. So he leverages partnerships, and other sponsors that work with him. And so whenever a state government like Lagos or any other state government is looking to have an intervention at a large scale, because he has that manpower of volunteers, and because he has the experience doing this over the years, he's able to go in and help implement. Okay, so that's one thing that we are now also doing. He's not, because of that reliance on the partnerships and the sponsorships, and that's one of the reasons he wasn't shortlisted on the GSIV program, because I remember sending to it and saying, I had a conversation with him, what's the model? So the model for some of them is not as yes. So, and that's why that we're having the conversations we're having now, even with investors and even with the ecosystem, to say, what exactly is ideal? What are you expecting? And what would you like to see in terms of opportunities for putting your money into? So we have a varied spectrum of investment preparedness or investment ready enterprises. Some of them are grant reliant, some of them are investment ready. And so what we want to do now is begin to bridge that gap more intentionally. So more of them are shifting into that space of investment readiness rather than just grant reliance. Yes. And then, how do we fund this? Thank you for that. I think that for the past 9 years of the 10 years, we've had we had one pioneer sponsor from the private sector. In the last 3 years, we then had another private sector sponsor. What is the sustainability? I love that you mentioned that, because the conversation I've been having internally with the team, one of the things is typically we've had this event that's happening in October free of charge. And then look at the caliber of speakers and people we've invited. We have very important conversations, and there are other side events that add value. And we said, look, it has to become paid access, so that then it can also cover its cost. We're also talking to the likes of International Youth Foundation. We're talking to IIF now. We're now joining the NABs, okay, so that we can open up ourselves and the work we're doing to the investment community. Also, AVP has come on board now, and we're a member of that community to say, how can we start showing a lot more of what we're doing, invite other investors to come on board. And I also recognize SMENG, because I know one of our alumni, Damilola Ashale, was with you during the deal room, and I think there are ongoing conversations there. So we are open to see more opportunities for investors to come on board. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Osarume. Let's put our hands together for him. Any more questions for Leap Africa as they make their way off the stage? Thank you very much once again. Thank you. Right. So we're moving on. Thank you very much, Osarume. Thank you, UNDP, for whetting our appetite. So essentially sharing with us some of the potential enterprises. One of the things I find interesting about the pipeline from Leap Africa is their focus on young people or youth-led enterprises. We know how huge there is in terms, the gap is in terms of the youth bulge in Nigeria and the growing associated effects that sort of comes with it. So well done Leap Africa, well done UNDP for curating this pipeline. Again, we would want to connect investors with some of these enterprises that are viable. And so that's the essence of this these conversations, these initial sets of conversations. Would also want to, moving us on, would want to get, I mean, Osarume had started talking about it, but we really want to get to understand your expectations, some of the things you would want to see during the various events that are coming up over the next couple of months. So for example, we talked about the deal room. We'd also talked about the Impact Fund Showcase. We had talked about the Gender Impact Summit, which is a sequel to the annual convening. So a couple of these events are lined up over the next few weeks or months, as the case may be. And so would want to get to understand some of the things you'd want to see in these various events. And so let's do Slido for this one. This particular question is really trying to say, we realize that in the room, there are a number of investors currently here who are raising funds. Actually, we know a few of you who are currently in that fundraising stage. And so what we're trying to essentially figure out is, how do we support your fundraising journey for your next close or subsequent closes for the funds you're raising for. And so which limited partners or which asset owners would you want to engage with during the Impact Fund Showcase? Who are some of those folks who you think if you engage with them, they would ultimately be able to contribute to your fundraising drives? And so that's what this question is all about. Please kindly scan the QR code. It should, or if you can't scan, you can just type, either you scan or you type the website and that number that's there, and I think it should pop up. You should see a question pop up on your screens. Okay, are you in present mode? Okay, just. Have we all scanned the QR code? Yes, okay, so I think you need to just. Okay, so that's our first question, to say, who are the limited partners you'd want to engage with? There are a number of them, but we just want to be sure that we are very targeted in our engagements in terms of who we're inviting, who we're bringing into the room. And so your suggestions would really go a long way in helping us identify potential limited partners who would want to see at the annual convening. Any tech issues? I hope we've sort of overcome the tech issues with this one. And so we're beginning to see a couple of responses come in. Insurance companies, family offices, the partnership initiative in the Niger Delta, pension funds. And I mean, if you have, I like the fact that we're calling out specific names. So if you know some specific organizations you'd want to see, I think BII is also big in Nigeria, the British International Investment. I think, I don't know if Propaco is big here in Nigeria, but you have a few of them. Interestingly, I think the MasterCard Africa Growth Fund is currently actually raising, it's a fund of funds and it's seeking for investors. So I think those are also some that, I mean, from the top of my head comes to mind. But if there are specifics we would want to see, please. I can see that DFIs is quite big on the screen. So there is need to pull in, I think a number of people agree we need the DFIs in the room. And so we would definitely try to see the likes of both national, but of course, international or global development finance institutions that are interested in making investments or supporting fund managers in Nigeria. So yes, pension funds also seems to be quite a focus for this. So I think we have quite a bit of work to do in terms of mobilizing some of these stakeholders. So obviously, I think we all agree that pension funds, DFIs, are big asset owners who need to be in the Impact Fund Showcase we're planning for November. Have we all made our inputs? Can we move on to the next slide, next question? Oh, okay, I think someone is typing. Okay, you've moved on already. Okay, all right. So thank you very much again for your responses to that previous question. Thank you so much. It helps us, again, like I said, it helps us to identify who to bring into the room. One of the events, another event which you would be curating is the Gender Impact Summit. Gender Impact Investment Summit, yes. It's a sequel to the annual convening. My CEO had earlier mentioned we're hosting, or that event is scheduled to hold on November 16, 2023. And so one of the things we'd like to hear, in terms of your feedback or opinions, would be, as we design this summit, what are some of the things, or what are some of your expectations for this summit? Again, this particular summit is trying to really close the gaps. I think I should actually allow my CEO talk about this gender summit, and then perhaps I can build on it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Maybe for those who missed the opening, we understand that there's a huge financing gap for gender in the impact investment space. And from research we've done previously, is a huge issue where female fund managers are not able to, raise capital within a reasonable time to sort or close this gap. We believe that we have more female fund managers, more women in the IC, Investment Committee, more women as CIOs. We will see more capital being deployed to women enterprises. Many of you are in the space who, do capacity building program, investment readiness program, see a huge challenge. And I will pass the microphone round to us so that we can really engage. It's a huge challenge in terms of supporting women to access finance. So this summit is our own intervention to deliberately provide access to finance for women to close the gender gap. And if we're not deliberate about this, we would never close that gap. In Africa, it's about $42 billion financing gap for women. We'd like to know that value in Nigeria and mobilize gender lens investors to close the gap. So this summit is to situate the problem, hold the conversation with stakeholders like yourself, provide solutions, and if possible, policies that can, help intermediaries, investors design appropriate products and financial instruments for women. We cannot use the same lens to screen gender opportunities like we do for, male-led enterprises. There's a 2X challenge, but the 2X challenge is just the basis. It's just the baseline. We must do more. So we would use this opportunity, whole conversation, come up with an agenda, and then draw up a program for the gender aspect of the work we're doing at the National Advisory Board. So this is what it is, and I will pass microphone to a few of you who have programs to just speak about what are some of the things that you are facing in terms of supporting female enterprises, and what will a summit like this do for you to actually close that financial inclusion gap for women? I'm looking at you because we did a program together and you're working in the in the gender space. What are some things that you're seeing, and how can this summit be an opportunity to mobilize capital for women in Nigeria?
Okay.
Uremu, thank you. Please introduce yourself and your organization.
Thank you very much. My name is Uremu Amajatoja, Grants and Technical Assistance Manager for SMENG. So like Ms. Itemore said, we've had some programs together to provide finance for women entrepreneurs. And although we've had some success in some of them, but to a very large number, it has been very, very strenuous trying to get funds for women entrepreneurs. And sometimes when you manage to access some funds, you see that many of these women entrepreneurs are unable to meet with some of the criteria for them to get those funds. The criteria are usually very, very stringent for women entrepreneurs. So it will be very interesting to see opportunities for women, funds being made available for women that don't have these stringent criteria for women entrepreneurs. So that's something that I will be looking forward to. And if we can do that, there are lots of women that really have potentials for, to scale up, but they just need this kind of funds or financial opportunity that won't be too stringent for them to assess. So, yeah, I'll be looking forward to things that are like that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Uremu. So the current funds that we have in the space, the criteria that are too stringent for women. You're looking for funds that can, catalytic capital, in other words, that do not have the stringent criteria that women can access. Thank you very much. I'd like to call on you. I know that you have some funds that, No, you. Yes, you're a fund manager. So what are you doing with your fund, and how are you financing women? And in a summit like this, how can we get commitment from, fund managers like yourself to design products for women or financial instruments for women?
Yeah, thank you. If the truth has to be said, women generally, even beyond the businesses, the enterprises, even within the investors, the women still have that challenges. I think I was listening to Arewa Capital saying that they were the first women or something like that. The Arewa Capital, the Alitias will tell you the problem that even they are still facing. Generally, I feel one of the key things that we need to, that I expect from this kind of forum is a situation, I think, something that is related to what you guys do. Within the group, I believe you would identify that whenever you are preparing the enterprises, the guys and the ladies don't move at the same pace, probably. There's always that challenge with the women. And I feel if it is possible, a fully women-focused investment readiness program, fully women-focused. Because naturally, I could remember last year, we were supposed to have an incubator program for the Africa Development Bank, and the criteria was it was supposed to be 50% women, 50% male. But we hardly had 20% women even applying. Hardly. We had to fill in the women's space with men. And it ran across Africa. They had to fill in the women's space. So I will want something that will bring out like a fully women-focused program like that, so that it will be known that it is only for women, not a blend.
I think we have a few of those programs. SMENG does one, and he just spoke to that. Even at that, there's still a challenge, but there must be that intentionality to build the pipeline. So it might take a number of years to do so. This is where catalytic capital comes in to focus on building a pipeline of women enterprises that can access capital, that can also scale maybe in 5 years' time, in 10 years' time. That's the kind of thing. And we need fund managers like yourself to be aware and to push your investors to focus, or to get a purely women funds for that kind of venture. Am I correct? Can I push you?
Sure.
Yeah. And, okay, please. Please, can we get the microphone for... Please, can you pass the microphone to Thelma? I see your hand up. Please, I'll call you as well. I'd really like us to engage because we want to do a program around this. So we want your feedback. I also want your commitment to... Please, go ahead.
Thank you, Tamara. I think wearing a number of hats here, myself and Uwa on the planning committee for this, and also being a co-founder of SMENG, what the truth of financing women is not that it should be less. I agree with you completely, sir. AFDB, we're currently working on something with AFDB actually, with Malado. And what we're seeing is, it's not that financing for women should be less than men, it should just be different. It should reflect the realities that women face because, what we don't want from this summit is for people to think is a woman's issue. And then we look around the room and it's just 90% of women and only 10 men. No. We're looking at this issue as, the financing gap that Etemere talked about has been a developmental challenge that affects not just Nigeria, everywhere. For as long as, that's why the AFDB started pushing this report of 42 billion gap. It came from AFDB saying that, look, you can't talk about, dealing with the issues of poverty in Africa without addressing the financing gap, because there's the saying that poverty in Africa has a feminine face. And so if you are going to challenge this developmental problem, you need to be intentional about bridging this gap. I think that's the narrative that we have to have for the Gender Summit. Otherwise, it will just be lots of women and it will be counterproductive. So I'm happy that you asked our colleague from AFDB. I want all of us who are involved in organizing this, the brilliant presentation from Leap Africa, we have to have male proponents and male presenters to change the conversation that it's not a woman's issue, it's a developmental issue. Thanks.
Thank you very much for saying that. It's not a woman's issue, it is a development issue. And I was on a panel with Dr. Ola Brown, who stressed that investing in women is good business. In their pipeline, they didn't intentionally set out to have 50% of the women in their portfolio, but they do. And those women are doing remarkably well. So it is good business to invest in women, and we must make a very strong case for it. And we need to have, male proponents, joining the bandwagon, he for she's, who are seeing the business opportunity in investing in women. It's one of the things that we are going to talk about at the summit. Abiola, I saw your hand up.
Just to say that we also have some hands online, and so.
Okay. Yes. So let's go online so that it's online. So can we please
Thank you. Good morning.
Let's go online. We'll come back to you. Is that okay, please? So let's just get the online people, and then I'll come to you, Abiola. Please let her just hold on. So who raised the hand up? Fatima. Okay, please, Fatima.
Thank you. I think I just want to echo what the other speakers have spoken about, especially in relation to the fact that, for women, we need a different approach to the kinds of financing that is being channeled, and even in the selection process of women entrepreneurs. And I would say, like, through our growth stage impact ventures program, one thing was evident was that some sectors were heavily underrepresented by women entrepreneurs, and it's not necessarily because of a lack of, female-owned or women-owned businesses in those sectors, but it was just more the fact that a lot of them couldn't compete in the same way that their male counterparts could. And so it made us take a step back and reevaluate our selection process, in the sense that we cannot necessarily use the same lens to screen female enterprises versus male enterprises, because their challenges are very different. One sector that comes to my mind is healthcare. For healthcare, it was so evident. I mean, we have a lot of female doctors, we have a lot of female doctors, just not that many female entrepreneurs in that sector. And the ones that are available are unable to perform or compete in the way that a male counterpart would, who would have raised, I don't know, $1 million in financing, you know. So just that thinking has now led us to reevaluate how we screen and source for female entrepreneurs with a very specific lens.
Thank you very much. A very important point you raised, Fatima, going back to the drawing board and reevaluating how we screen, you know, female enterprises in our opportunities. So the same thing, I'm hoping that LEAP Africa, UNDP, we can all come together and have, you know, a criteria that reflects the challenges and the realities that female enterprises face in terms of accessing finance to businesses. And also, it's important that we also call intermediary and investors to reevaluate how they are designing financial instruments and products for women. I'm hoping that we can get more institutional investors at the event itself and then come up with this criteria and get everyone to sign up and then track it and measure it. Are you increasing access to finance through your product and services, and see where we are in a year's time? But it starts from us that creates these opportunities for them. We need to go back to the drawing board, and I'm hoping that we can all come together, facilitate a session and have this done, and the Gender Summit will be that opportunity. Thankfully, we have 2 of our planning committee members here. We'll go back and we'll take what you said. But just to go back to your responses, please, can you we'll come back to you. Please, just any more question online? Let's see the slider. Yeah. Let's take Abiola's feedback and then we'll just go to what some of you are saying here.
Okay, so she said it's been said.
Oh, sorry. So Fatima beat you to it. All right. So some things that you've mentioned here, extractive investors, whose contribution is this? Extractive investors? Yeah. So please speak to extractive investors.
Okay, so the idea behind typing the extractive investors is to see if we could invite like these investors in that space to the event, because yet from the work that we do at the foundation and the feedback we get from grantees, it's clear that
Can you use the microphone, please?
It's clear that women in the extractive investors, women in the extractive space are a bit marginalized. Even the type of funding and the type of type of funding that they get, or if you check the space very well, it's more of like the menial jobs. They can't compete well with the male counterparts. Yes, they provide a lot of capacity building for them, but they don't really have the financial power to like compete favorably with males. So having these investors in the summit, maybe I think it will also be good for them to see reasons why they need to invest more, or maybe mainstream gender in whatever they do. Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Very good feedback. So I saw other things like getting policymaker and there, catalytic capital, setting up a gender fund, and some other feedback from yourself. These are things we'll go back to the drawing board and, you know, try to put as, you know, the outcomes of the conversation we'll be having on the 16th of November. We'd like to invite you to partner with us to ensure that women in the impact investment space, either as enterprises or either as investors, get opportunities, and we would need to hold people accountable. So once again, I want to thank you all for this conversation. I thank our planning committee members. A lot of work for us to do, Uwa and Thelma. So it's possible, and we will do it. It is possible, and we will do it. So on that note, should I hand over the microphone to you, or do I just... Let's hear some...
Yes, actually, we're still teasing out
okay,
feedback from people in the room. So Perhaps since you're also talking about the gender summit, you can also just talk about the deal rooms. I don't know.
Okay. So the deal room, we're using the Deal South Africa program. You see the flyer on your table. It's for us to please sign on and ensure that we're able to connect you to investors and also connect investors to investable opportunities, particularly those enterprises that went through the UNDP and the Leap Africa program. So our question is, what kind of companies do you want to see? What kind of companies do you want to see, particularly for investors that are here, Frag Investment? So the thing is, we want to close deals. We want to move money through this. So what are your 3 expectations? And also, be good to have some recommendations to help us as we prepare for the deal rooms. So what are your top 3 expectations or recommendations for the deal rooms, which, if put in place, will accelerate the potential of closing deals and investment in impact enterprises? Ewa, we want you in the room. So what are those things you want? Frag Investment, we want you in the room. SMNG, I know you have some funds. So if you're going to come in as an investor, what kind of things do you want to see? Okay, technology, yeah. I think it's important to climate and energy transition companies, okay. We also do have some pre-profiling for investors who will be participating, so it's easier for us to make you with these opportunities. And for those who still have the same impact thesis and investment strategy, you're not new to us as well. But if you have changed anything, we'll share with you a link to pre-profile you, and so we can match you accordingly. SMENG, do we have any funds at all that you would want to invest in enterprises that we've showcased today? It'd be good to also hear and make that connections too. So creative industries, okay. Clean energy and PUE companies. Verifiable impact numbers. That's so important, and this we'll do this through the due diligence process. Early stage and growth stage businesses, demonstrated growth, female-led funds. Okay, just keep it coming. We will put all of this together, and then please, let's reach out to them to share the pre-profiling, which will help us to match them effectively. Any other slides?
So actually, that's the segue to the pre-profile slides. So
okay, so we have the pre-profile slides
so
coming up.
It's coming up.
Ability to scale. This is just so important. Feedback mechanisms for unsuccessful enterprises, exciting models, access to basic goods and services. Feedback, please, we need to take this very importantly, the feedback mechanism for unsuccessful enterprises. And this is to our LEAP colleagues and UNDP. So enterprises need to know why they were not selected, why they were not successful. And then we keep them also in our database and see how they are progressing, rather than just getting new enterprises. We can also, the Deal South Africa program, I think we must socialize this. We have capacity building programs, videos, resources that would help them, kind of grow without having to, provide, so much resources to get them investment ready. They have access to those resources and ask them how they are doing, if these tools are useful for them. So those kind of support is what we can deliberately do to grow the ecosystem, and particularly looking at Leap Africa and UNDP, so that we can work, even our own team, as we work with enterprises, we must give them those feedback. Okay, so next slide.
Yes, please, the next one.
Okay, so this is the pre-profiling for investors who want to participate. We will socialize this with other investors who are not in the room. So as we it's important for me to say this, is that we learned that it's not the absence of capital, but the fact that the opportunities are not in existence. So we want to create that opportunities through programs like this. So we need to work with yourself. So many investors spend huge amounts of money in terms of building the pipeline. How do we help you reduce the cost that you spend in building your pipeline through programs like this? So we want to work with you. We want to ensure that you have the best, opportunities of enterprises that go through our program. So please just screen. We'll pre-profile and see how we can match you with the best opportunities so you can invest in and close a deal at this year's annual convening deal room. Okay.
And please, if you're having any challenges with this, just let us know, just to be sure, no tech issues. Any challenges with filling the form?
Okay, so while they are doing that, let's go to the enterprise one. So if you have enterprises, SMNG, you can just take a picture and circulate, right? Yeah. To the enterprise community. And that leads, okay, no.
We have two others, but not the enterprise one, right?
Okay. Okay, so we're coming back to the catalytic capital survey, which will take, 5 minutes or less? Okay, so we need your feedback on this catalytic capital survey. Your insights will help us know more about where we are with deployment of catalytic capital in Nigeria. Sorry.
One of the things I want to add about the catalytic capital survey is we are also trying to identify investors who are deploying catalytic capital, and we would want to showcase or spotlight these organizations during the annual convening. Thank you very much for helping us facilitate that session. Please, let's put our hands together for our CEO while she settles down. Thank you very much. Thank you. And so, just want to add that as we fill out the short survey on catalytic capital, one of the things we do within the Impact Investors Foundation is really showcasing thought leadership. And so, we're quite big on research, we're quite big on writing out case studies and successful examples of organizations who are deploying catalytic capital in Nigeria and who have had measurable successes. And so would want to kindly request that for some of the investors in the room who already have funds that are catalytic in nature, my colleague Emmanuel will be reaching out after now, perhaps, to see if you'd want to have your organization spotlighted in this case study series we're developing as it relates to catalytic capital. Again, if there are any challenges as you fill the forms, please let us know, and we would be happy to assist. Moving us on, I think we're slowly winding down, but then again, like I said, we're big on information, and so a lot of the information you share with us helps us plan similar events, helps us be more tailored in our support to the impact investing ecosystem in Nigeria. And so please share your feedback with us. We know sometimes it can get, these surveys can, survey fatigue, yes. Sometimes there is a bit of fatigue from filling out these several surveys, but we please crave your indulgence on this as we do this. I want to ensure we have enough time to fill these out, so no hurries. Let's just take our time and do that. Again, there is tea available, coffee, just in case at some point it gets too cold here, or you know. Our tech fellows, do you want to give us a little music while folks feel this very low sound? Again, just to add that in our, we'd send emails out at the end of these events to all of us who attended, but we'll be sharing these links again with you. So just in case there was any struggle or challenges while filling it out, you'll also have the opportunity to, when you're back in your offices, to also fill these out in case there are challenges doing that, you know. After this particular one, we just had one more, which would basically wrap us up. Just one more QR code, which you would want your feedback. But I think that one is just about a 1 minute. It should take about a minute or less in terms of that feedback, right? Or slightly more. Okay. And for our participants online, please let us know also if you have any struggles with the online links. We'll be happy to assist. We have someone on the online meeting who is able to assist. So please, if there are challenges, reach out to Ife Oluwa. You'd see she's online. She would be able to assist you with any challenge you may have. Anyone finished? Has anyone been able to complete some of the questions? Okay, I see we're still on our phones, so it's like it's a work in progress, right? Yeah, okay. Yes, if you'd rather have it submitted after, that's also okay. Again, like I said, we would share in an email for all of us who came to this event. We would share in an email all of these various links, or whether it's a link or the QR code, anyone that works, you basically have access to this, so you can feel. And particularly, one of the ones we would really want your information rather is the pre-profiling survey. So the one before this, the barcode before this, because that essentially helps us do that matchmaking thing we've been trying to talk about. So that form, that pre-profiling form is super important, and so we kindly request that, you know, even if you're not able to do it now, please kindly fill out that survey form, because it will help us match you with enterprises who sort of fit within that criteria. You'd see a couple of questions around like ticket sizes, sectors you would want to invest in, and quite a bit of other areas where we're asking questions which would help us do matchmaking. I think we just had, just for quick introductions, we just had someone join us. Please, I'll give you the opportunity to just say hello.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Damilola Alabi. I'm Chief of Staff at Vested World. Vested World is a venture capital firm, and we invest in early-stage businesses on the continent. Our primary markets being Nigeria, Ghana, Kenya, and our secondary markets being Tanzania, Rwanda, Uganda, and Senegal. We write pre-seed and seed check of 50K to 50K, and we write pre-Series A to Series A of 500K to $1 million. Our main sectors are agribusinesses, consumer products, and enabling technology.
Thank you very much, Dami. Thank you, Dami, for joining us, and thank you to Uremutu for also representing you while you're not here. I'll pass.
Thank you very much, Joseph, for your fantastic coordination. We have come to the end of today's Investors Roundtable, and I want to say thank you to everyone. Please give yourselves a round of applause. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you so much. There's a word Ubuntu. Did I get that pronunciation right? Ubuntu. If you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, and this brings in the sustainability we've been preaching since, go with others. In building the impact investing space, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. And we need all hands on deck. It's an iterative process. We make assumptions, we test those assumptions, we go back, we go with you, we get your feedback, we come back, and we keep improving. If we're going to succeed, we need partners. And today, we are here because of you and our partners. I want to say thank you to our board members. We want to thank you for your continuous support. Your organization, ACA, have been our founding members, providing support to the work we are doing. Our other partners, Ford Foundation, represented here, Dalberg Advisors Business Day, Bank of Industry. I want to say thank you to our founding partners. And earlier on, we had our chair, Mr. Oladele Afolabi, who has been so supportive from day one. We want to say thank you to him in his absence. We also want to recognize our sponsors, the EU and the UNDP, very strong, formidable partners. We want to say thank you so much for your support. GIZ Nigeria Competitiveness Project, though the program has come to an end, but they've made this journey with us a lot easier with all their support. Leap Africa, EHA Health, Circular Economy, Innovation Partnership, AVPA. These are all our technical partners working with us to organize this year's annual convening on impact investing, and also our partners to work with us in the Gender Impact Investment Summit. Some of them have shown interest, but we're yet to bring them on board. We would mention them and announce them to the community once we are able to firm up their support and partnership for our program this year. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, I want to say thank you. And please, let's see you on the 31st and 1st of October. Some people who will be coming, let me give you a sneak peek. We have the Right Honorable Nick Hurd, 3-time UK Minister and current lead or chair of the G7 Task Force on Impact Investing, Global Task Force. We have, some key government functionaries, new ministers who also will be participating at this year's convening. The UNDP, the new UNDP resident representative, EU, embassies, foundations, limited partners will be at this year's annual convening. Please make it a date. If you haven't filled the form to register, please come. And also, we would need your support to set up a gender strategy and would like your participation at this year's Gender Impact Investment Summit. So please put this date on your calendars. Again, 31st of October and 1st of November for the annual convening on impact investing. The Gender Summit is on the November 16th, 2023, all 8 a.m. in the morning. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for coming. Food and refreshment, number 7 on the agenda, is free. Please enjoy yourself. Thank you. Bye-bye. Okay, please, group photograph, please. Thank you. Thank you, Fatima, and online audience. We really acknowledge you for participating in today's event. Thank you. Okay, please let's come to the front and just take some photographs.